some Democrats, led by Hillary Clinton, aren't happy that the delegates from Florida and Michigan won't be seated in the National Convention because those states moved the dates of their primaries in clear violation of party rules. Well, you know what? Too bad. Sucks to be you, doesn't it? You know, that's something we don't say enough anymore in America. Too bad. You agreed to the rules. You broke them. Now, too bad. Oh, but Glenn, we don't want this decided by some backroom superdelegate. You mean the superdelegates that you designed and came up with, that system? Too bad. Oh, but Glenn, you don't understand. If we don't seat the delegates from those states, then we might lose their votes in the general election. Yeah. Too bad. But Glenn, the voters in those states are going to be disenfranchised if we don't let their voices be heard. Too bad. Americans are not disenfranchised because our leaders won't count the votes in a couple of states. They're disenfranchised because our leaders aren't doing their jobs. They're disenfranchised because we are working hard every day. You are busting your ass every day to support your family, to raise your kids so they understand the difference between right and wrong. And what do your leaders do? What do the people in Washington do? The same thing every time. The exact opposite of what you're teaching your kids to do. My 3-year-old knows more about personal responsibility than the kindergartners we got serving us in Washington, the ones we lent our power to. It's time for them to be afraid of us, not the other way around. In the case of Florida and Michigan, I've listened. I've listened to all the moving arguments about why there should be a do-over. But quite honestly, they're not arguments at all. They're excuses. And my response? Too bad. If this race wasn't close, or if the states only were offering a combined 36 delegates instead of 366, do you think any of these people would actually care? Of course not. And now the people in those states, the people who are sick and tired of being used as pawns for political gain, are finally standing up and saying enough is enough. By an overwhelming majority, voters here in Florida have sent a crystal clear message to the state's Democratic Party. No. No do-overs, no revotes, no more excuses. Too bad. The party isn't listening. Oh, I'm sorry. The party says they're listening. I don't think they're listening. They're listening in the same way the kindergartners always listen. The way my son listens. You know, he's like, oh, And then as soon as I'm not looking, he does it anyway. Karen Thurman is the chairwoman for the Florida Democratic Party, and Peter Fenn is former Al Gore advisor and Democratic strategist. Karen, when we're not looking, are you going to keep trying to change the rules, or are you really listening?
First of all, I am going to say that I'm not sure that you have been listening, because we have been down here fighting the fight through the Florida legislature. The one thing that I've appreciated and understood about this primary season is that every state does something different. In the state of Florida, it just happens to be that the Florida legislature, and oh, by the way, House Bill 537, which is the same amount of numbers that Gore lost the race in 2000, was actually passed on and signed by a Republican legislature and a Republican governor.
Oh, my God.
So for us...
Oh, I didn't know you guys were victims. Oh, you've been victimized. No.
Yep,
Hang
absolutely.
On.
Too bad.
Too bad. You guys knew what was going on in the first place, Karen. Peter, you and I were sitting there on the night that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton started saying this bull crap. And Peter, you ran with Al Gore. You helped Al Gore's campaign. And what did you say? You looked it up and said, oh my gosh, the Democrats knew.
Look, I mean, my problem with this is that the Democratic National Committee established these rules. They set it up. They said if you vote in front of this deadline, then you're not going to get your delegates. And, you know, when you set up the rules, you got to abide by the rules. Now, at this point, as I suggested on that show, I think what they, and Karen probably thinks I'm stark raving nuts, but I think in both Michigan and Florida, they ought to cut the delegates in half, because that's the penalty that they should take, and they should divide the delegates evenly between Clinton and Obama.
Hang on just a second. I need to get Bob over here so I have access to his shirt. Go ahead and tell me all of the ways you guys have been disenfranchised in Michigan, too. Tell me about the sad story here. Go ahead.
Well, I think there clearly is a different story there. They have a Democratic governor and a Democratic House who made the decision to do what they want. I know you can cry. I can't.
But how did the evil Republicans steal that election?
Oh, look.
But how
we
did the evil
exactly
Republicans do it?
Well, Glenn, besides the fact that, let's see, they're 2-1. I'm talking about in the state of Florida. I can't talk to Michigan.
I know.
But in Florida,
I know. Well, we'll have to look for somebody else.
It was well, I'm not, look, Glenn, I have not been looking for excuses. I've been looking for ways to solve this. In June, I started to look, instead of doing a full vote on January 29th, looked at trying to do a vote by mail. Nobody said, there's just no money, we can't do it. Okay, fine. So then they said, the DNC said, well, let's do a caucus. Well, they wanted to give me $850,000 with 150 polling sites when Florida has 6,700. Quite frankly, there are things that I stand on, and that's principle. And those principles happen to have been that we needed to have a fair and open and fair and open and maximum participation, and that includes our military serving overseas. So we kept trying to offer to play by the rules. Okay,
Karen,
sure, absolutely.
Great. You've already played by the rules. It passed.
I have.
Nobody wanted to pay for it. It passed. Let's move on with our life. You guys, especially in Florida, you keep trying to change the rule election after election after election. Enough. Let's not make ourselves into a laughingstock to the people in the Soviet Union who look like they have more fair elections than Florida does. For the love of Pete, stop changing the rules.
But let me make one point, Glenn. My guess is if the Republicans had the same problem, they'd be going through the same
and you
process
know what, Peter?
and having the same kind of trouble. Don't you think?
And Peter, let me tell you something. You know me well enough to know. You know me well enough to know I would be telling the Republicans the same damn thing. You made the rules. You live by them. Right. Peter and Karen, thanks a lot.
Well,
that's
good.
The real story tonight. By the way, the monologue that we just did a minute ago on personal responsibility, too bad, was adapted from a recent column that I wrote for CNN.com. If you'd like to read the whole column in its entirety, head over to glennbeck.com. You'll find a link to the full article. While you're there, you can also sign up for my free email newsletter. It includes the complete column in tomorrow's edition. That's glennbeck.com, and it's all completely free. Sucks to be me.